It's a beautiful day outside, so I thought I'd take some time and answer some questions that you guys have sent in from time to time. If you leave a comment on this video, I will answer your question either in an upcoming video or directly in a reply to your comments. So I'm always open and I always try my best to respond to everything that comes in. My name's Steve and I've been a full-time RVer for 3 years now. It is a beautiful day outside here and I thought I would take some time to answer some of your questions. My friend Jody in Canada asks, what is too long of a day to travel for you in your RV? And really, there's like two answers to this. One is I like to get up in the morning, take a nice relaxing morning, not stressed, not rushed, pack everything up. It makes it so that you don't forget things if you do it that way, especially if you have a checklist. And oddly enough, I don't do a checklist for moving days. That's probably another thing we should talk about. Then from there, you've got to get to the new campsite after the check-in time. So even if I did leave first thing early in the morning, chances are I might not have a place to land when I go. And I usually like to drive one gas tank, which is about 3 hours. So 3 hours is the short answer to the question, but there's a lot more that goes into it. Sometimes you have some place that you want to go that's like super fun and you just have to get there and you want to get there as quick as you possibly can. I have not yet driven without a plan of where to stay for the night. Usually I try to look for a place to sleep because a long truck and a long trailer, my truck and trailer combination is about 65 feet total length. I don't fit everywhere. So I can spend the night in a truck stop. Those are pretty cool. I can spend the night in a park and ride or service station, not service station, what do they call those things? A rest stop. I guess a rest stop is what they call it. I can spend the night in a rest stop. And those work out really well. But sometimes I also want to get like a good cup of coffee in the morning. And if you spend the night in the rest stop, there might not be a coffee machine inside. And I've got batteries and stuff to deal with all of that, which is pretty cool. So there's always a way, but the object of this whole lifestyle is to be relaxed and not to be rushed. So anything more than 3 hours, anything less than 3 nights doesn't really make sense. I like to stay a week at minimum. And right now I'm trying to learn if leaving Friday to Friday is better than leaving Sunday to Sunday, because we've had trouble booking weekends because all y'all weekenders out there like to take all the good juicy weekends up, and when we have a place that we need to be, we have trouble finding spots. Jody, I hope that answers your question. Keep them coming. My friend Don in Texas has a question about trailer hitch. You want to pick the trailer hitch that is the strongest that you can afford. I wouldn't waste any thought on how much money you spend on a good trailer hitch. Depending on the weight of your trailer, you want a weight distribution hitch and you want some kind of trailer brake. And I don't mean the trailer brake on the wheels, I mean an anti-sway brake on the hitch itself, or an anti-sway system on the hitch itself. This is kind of a question that I don't really have a good answer to. I have experience with 3 or 4 different kinds of trailer hitches, and so far they're all kind of interesting. The one I have on my current trailer right now has chains to transfer the weight to the front of the truck, and my last truck, it really didn't transfer enough weight to make a difference, but my last truck was also pretty big. My F450 could tow 26,500 pounds and my trailer was 10,000 pounds. So transferring weight to the front of the truck, it was like the truck was like, what are you doing? Get off, leave me alone. And when I put it on the cat scales, it only told me there was a 20-pound transfer to the front axle of the truck, which to me is within the margin of error of the scale and not really noticeable. So I think it didn't really do anything at all. But it depends on your truck. Make sure that your trailer is below the towing capacity and the tongue of the trailer is below the cargo capacity of the truck itself, because real quick, you get over the limits of your cargo capacity long before you get over the total weight carrying capacity of the tow hitch itself. You always want some kind of margin of safety in there for you, some type of comfort space so that when you're driving, you're not terribly worried about it. If you're stressed out about towing, then start off smaller and work your way up. Don't start off big, which is what I did. I started with a 23-foot travel trailer, and now I have a 36-foot travel trailer. And actually, the 36 is a little bit easier to maneuver in the campground, but it's a little bit more to tow on the highway. So it kind of balances out, I guess. Don also asks, is there a way to charge your batteries while you're driving? There are a couple of ways to do this. You can get solar panels and mount them on the roof. I did a video on that. And then every time you have sunlight, your batteries are charging, whether you're driving, parked, or not. You can also have a DC to DC charger installed on the truck that you're using to tow the trailer with, and then you get a separate hookup. Your 7-pin connector for your trailer doesn't provide enough oomph, enough amperage to charge the batteries, so you would need to wire up a second connector to the back of the truck with some pretty heavy gauge wires to be able to handle the charging, and then have a DC to DC charger there as well. So from alternator to DC charger to another plug, into your battery bank. Those are two different ways that you can charge while you're driving. So Meltcom asked me why I chose gas over electric for the Honda Trail 125 that I got. And I really don't have a good answer for it. I kind of just wanted the Honda Trail 125. If they had a diesel motorcycle at the time, that would have been awesome, because then it's diesel for the truck and it's diesel for the motorcycle. And in that truck, I had a 91-gallon fuel tank in the back, which would have meant that I had, an infinite supply of diesel for the motorcycle. The Honda Trail gets like 100 miles to the gallon. It's kind of ludicrous. I think I filled it up in a year now, 3 times, 4 times maybe, and I'm not trying my best to save fuel. I'm trying to take that bike everywhere I possibly can. So the other thing that I needed was I wanted something that was lightweight. The bike is about 250 pounds. I wanted something that was street legal with license plates so that I could ride into town and run some errands and things along those lines. And I wanted something fun that I could take off-road, hence the trail part of things. And I try my best to spend more time off-road than I do on-road. And other than that, it's got a lot of different aftermarket accessories that you can put on it, which is always a fun thing to do with motorcycles. So there are tons of choices in there. The Honda Trail can get up to 45, 55 miles an hour depending on the conditions and how much I tuck in under the handlebars there to be a little more aerodynamic. But it's a fun bike, and fun is the name of the lifestyle here. So try and have as much fun as you can, and what's the best way to do that is to explore some newfangled motorcycle toy. That's what I did. What is a day in the life like for me? I call the channel Living for a Living because I am living for a living. A lot of people say, what do you do for a living? I live. I live for a living. And that was something I picked up on a YouTube channel a long time ago from a guy named J00. And he looked like he was having a lot of fun, and I think that would be a great idea for me to do, to have a lot of fun. So when I wake up in the morning, I kind of figure out what it is that I want to do that day. And I actually enjoy making YouTube videos. I enjoy playing with radios. You probably have seen my other ham radio channel, and I do a lot of videos and education and how-tos and just fun lifestyle stuff. The other day I woke up and decided I wanted to climb a mountain and get the mountain on the air. We call it Summits on the Air in the ham radio space, and got out my Honda Trail 125, got on it, figured out the best way to get there without getting onto major highways and getting run over, and then getting off onto the side roads while still on the bike and riding down the 2-track dirt roads as far up the mountain as I could go, and then a short hike up to the top and back down and edit the video and send it out to all you guys to watch. Always something fun to do, and being out in it starts your brain in that thinking process of how can I do this while still bringing in enough income to put food on the table. And your brain loves to solve problems. And if your answer to that is a 9 to 5 and then chill out on the weekends, great. My answer to that is figuring out some new way and some new strategy to provide more value to the world. And if you provide value out, you get value in return. And there you go. So that's a day in the life, is just get up and enjoy it and do whatever. I really can't put food on my table by sitting outside the RV in a lounge chair staring at a fire in the middle of the night. It's occasionally fun to do, but I got a touch of that ADD. We used to just call it, quit bugging me and go outside, when I was growing up. Are you partially or fully retired? I think retirement's kind of a state of mind. I don't know that I'll ever stop working, because I can't stand, nature abhors a vacuum. My brain abhors a vacuum. I just can't stand sitting still and doing nothing. It kind of drives me insane. Like, why aren't we doing something? So I will always be doing something while I am able to do something, which means I'll probably be working some way up until I'm no longer able to function. And then, bury me and move on. Hopefully I left some kind of useful legacy to somebody somewhere, I don't know. But that's the plan.
Meet Circle 6 Mail Drop, your real Texas mailing address on the road. It's built by RVers, for RVers, a USPS compliant virtual mailbox that scans and forwards your mail wherever you wander. Need a legit street address? Not a P.O. box? For vehicle registration or residency? They've got you covered. In no tax Texas. Stay on the move, not on the mail. Circle 6 Mail Drop. Your address, wherever you roam.
The background of the RV park seems kind of empty outside of the summer months. Well, this is July right now, and it's pretty empty behind me. This park in particular is about half full, and it's outside of Telluride, Colorado. So it should be pretty well hopping this time of year. You see the major holidays are really busy on the weekends at the RV parks, Memorial Day, Labor Day, 4th of July, those kinds of things. But then things kind of slow down. If you get farther into the south in the winter, like Arizona, then the parks are pretty full pretty much all the time. The one that we're staying in this winter is probably going to be about 85% occupied at all times for the entire winter. It just depends on where you are and what you got in mind and where you're going. There are places where you can go dispersed camping and it's just nobody but you on a hillside with a fantastic view. No electricity, no sewer, no water, no nothing. That's why they call it dispersed camping. And you can be there for a week or so and never see another soul, and that would be fantastic. And then after a while, you kind of miss people, and then you want to go hang out with friends. And that's fantastic. So that's one of the cool things about this lifestyle. If I don't like my neighbor, I can leave. If I don't like the political climate in the area, I can leave. If there's a wildfire coming or a tornado or an earthquake or a hurricane, I can leave. And if it's fantastic, I can stay. That's one of the cool things about this kind of lifestyle. And then lastly, we get down to the new truck, the big white elephant in the room. I guess that's kind of a Christmas thing, white elephant. But the new truck, the old truck, I don't know what's going on with vehicles in this world today, but it seems like the manufacturers and the engineers are making them harder and harder to repair, which makes it easier and easier for you to make the decision just to get a different one instead. And my truck had a fuel pump problem that prevented it from going up a mountainside. And I'm in Colorado, so you can imagine that that's really not an option. To replace the fuel pump or to just diagnose what might have been a simple faulty wiring harness was going to require removing the cab of the truck. $5,000 to replace a $200 part that you used to be able to do with a socket set laying on your back under the truck in an hour or so. Now it takes a week. It's kind of ridiculous. On top of that, they have really crippled the diesel vehicles. Looking at getting a new diesel vehicle, they told me it was going to be an extra $13,000 just to change the motor out. So they would have taken the cost of the motor that I didn't buy and put that off to the side, and it still cost $13,000 more. So let's assume that the original motor, the gas motor, was $5,000. So $13,000 plus $5,000, so $18,000 for a diesel motor. Then you have EGR, exhaust gas recovery, exhaust gas recirculation, depending on who you talk to, which takes your exhaust gases and recirculates them back into the engine. Your engine's not designed to run off of exhaust gases. Perpetual motion doesn't exist. Then you have DPF, diesel particulate filter. So let's put a great big filter in your exhaust pipe. That's not going to cause any problems. You won't need to change that filter out because we'll just burn more fuel to run it hotter to burn off the soot that it collects. Then why have it? And then you have DEF. So we're going to put an extra chemical into your system, which requires all kinds of processing, refining, mining, etc., to get it out of the ground, to convert it into something that you can use so that you can then spray it on the windshield of the car behind you. All of these things conspire together against your diesel engine and reduce its fuel mileage about half. It's kind of crazy. There's this thing called a delete, which is just a code word for removing all of that stuff that I just mentioned. And people report back that their fuel mileage doubles when they do the delete. So you pay extra for the engine, you pay a little bit extra for the fuel, you got to buy DEF, and then you have these other systems, your EGR system, your EGR cooler, your diesel filter system that's in there, the computer to run all of those things, and all of the costs just add up. So I got a gas truck. I got a new, it's the Godzilla motor from Ford. I didn't really get it because it was a Ford. I didn't get it because it was the Godzilla motor. I just got it because it was available at the time and in the price range and was able to tow the beast. So here we are. So far I am 2 trips in with it, and those were both trips over the mountain, 7% grade up, 7% grade down. I got to tell you, going down is a lot scarier than going up because now I have my whole house pushing me from behind, and as it's pushing you from behind going downhill and you run out of brakes, that's not fun. So I go real slow. I put it in the lower gear. I save my brakes as much as I possibly can, but the new truck has been just fine. Enough power to pull uphill, enough braking and stopping power to go downhill. I do miss some of the engine braking that the diesel has because the diesel has a higher compression ratio than a gas motor. But there doesn't seem to be any logical, intelligent reason why all of these diesel systems exist. And don't think it's about protecting the environment, because burning twice as much fuel to save the environment from burning the normal amount of fuel really doesn't add up in my book. So I hope that answered some of your questions. I hope we had a good time together. And if you have some more questions, I would be happy to answer them. Hit that subscribe button on your way down to leave a new comment, because that just makes me happy. I enjoy seeing that number go up, and I need your help to have that happen. I can only subscribe to myself so many times. You guys are great. I'll see you in the next one, which is this video right over here.